The spotlight cut through the opulent ballroom of Asheville's Grand Meridian Hotel, pinning Sarah Caldwell and Ryan Whitaker in its unforgiving glare. The crowd's murmurs fell silent as a massive screen flickered to life behind them, displaying a photo of the two locked in an intimate embrace outside a hotel room. Gasps rippled through the room, followed by whispers sharp as knives. "Is that his mistress?" someone muttered. "She's married, isn't she?" Sarah's face drained of color, her emerald dress suddenly too tight, her hands trembling as she clutched Ryan's arm. Ryan, usually the picture of polished confidence, stood frozen, his jaw clenched so hard it might crack. Ethan Caldwell, Sarah's husband, stood at the edge of the stage, his dark eyes burning with cold triumph. Beside him, Lauren Whitaker, Ryan's wife, wore a smile sharp enough to cut glass. "This," Ethan said, his voice carrying across the stunned ballroom, "is what happens when you think you're untouchable." The screen flashed again, texts, receipts, a paper trail of betrayal laid bare for Asheville's elite to see. Sarah's tears streaked her mascara, and Ryan's polished facade crumbled under the weight of their public disgrace. This was no accident. This was revenge, meticulously planned, and Ethan and Lauren were just getting started. 3 weeks earlier, the truth had hit Ethan like a freight train. It was a rainy October evening in Asheville, North Carolina, the Blue Ridge Mountains shrouded in mist beyond the town's twinkling lights. Halloween decorations lined the streets, plastic skeletons dangled from porches, and carved pumpkins grinned from stoops along Lexington Avenue. Ethan, a wiry man in his mid-30s with a restless edge, sat in his old Ford pickup outside Rosie's diner, staring at his wife Sarah's phone. She'd left it unlocked on their kitchen counter while grabbing her coat, a careless mistake that changed everything. The message glowed on the screen. "Meet me earlier. Can't wait to see you." It wasn't from a friend or a colleague. It was from Ryan. Ethan and Sarah had been married for 10 years, 10 years of shared laughter, quiet fights, and what he thought was unbreakable trust. But as he scrolled through the texts, each one felt like a blade. Ryan wasn't just a coworker. The messages spoke of hotel rooms, late-night whispers, and an intimacy that no colleague should share. The final blow was a text confirming a meetup that night at the Lantern Bar, a sleek spot downtown. Sarah had breezed back into the kitchen, kissed his cheek, and said, "I'm meeting some work friends for drinks. Don't wait up." Her voice was light, oblivious to the storm raging inside him. "Sure," Ethan said, his tone flat, betraying nothing. When the door clicked shut, he sank into a chair, the phone a live grenade in his hand. Betrayal froze time, trapping him in memories of their life together, vacations in the Smoky Mountains, promises made over cheap wine, dreams of a future now tainted. Confronting her would be too easy. She'd cry, lie, or spin a story to slip free. No, Ethan wanted something sharper, something that would hurt as much as her lies did. He needed to know who Ryan was. A quick search revealed Ryan Whitaker, a real estate developer with a flashy Instagram full of rooftop bars and luxury watches. There, in one photo, was Sarah, laughing beside him at a local charity gala. Ethan's stomach twisted, but then he saw another figure, Lauren Whitaker, Ryan's wife, her arm looped through his, her smile polished and poised. For a moment, Ethan hesitated. Dragging Lauren into this felt cruel, but fairness demanded it. She deserved the truth as much as he did. The next morning, Ethan waited outside Ryan's glass-walled office on Biltmore Avenue. When Lauren stepped out, her tailored blazer crisp and her handbag screaming money, he approached. "Lauren Whitaker," he called, his voice steady despite his racing pulse. She stopped, her heels clicking on the pavement, her eyes narrowing. "Yes? Who are you?" "Ethan Caldwell," he said, holding up his phone with the damning texts. "Our spouses are closer than they should be. We need to talk." Lauren's face paled as she read, her grip tightening on her bag. For a second, he thought she'd collapse, but then her eyes hardened, a spark of fury igniting. "You're sure?" she asked, her voice low. "Dead sure," Ethan said. "I'm not here to cause a scene. I just thought you should know." Lauren stared at the screen, her lips thinning. Then, with a resolve that matched his own, she said, "Do you have a plan?" Ethan hadn't expected an ally, but he'd found one. Lauren wasn't a victim, she was a force. "I'm working on it," he said, a grim smile forming. "And I think you'll want in." Over coffee at a quiet cafe, they plotted. Lauren's polished exterior hid a rage as raw as Ethan's, and by the time they parted, they had a plan so ruthless it felt like a blade honed to perfection. That evening, they stood outside the Lantern Bar, its warm lights glinting off the wet pavement. Lauren adjusted her scarf, her eyes glinting with purpose. "Ready?" she asked. Ethan nodded, his jaw tight. Let's make them pay. Inside, the bar hummed with chatter and the clink of glasses. Sarah and Ryan sat in a corner booth, their heads close, laughing over martinis. Sarah wore a green dress Ethan didn't recognize, and Ryan's hand rested on her arm, casual but possessive. They looked like a couple in love, untouchable in their stolen moment. Lauren's breath caught, but her face stayed cold. Look at them, she hissed. Like they own the damn world. Let's take it away, Ethan said, his voice a low growl. They approached, and Sarah's smile vanished when she saw Ethan, her eyes wide with panic. Ryan turned, his charm faltering as he spotted Lauren. Ethan? Sarah stammered. What are you? Surprised. Ethan slid into the booth, his tone sharp. Lauren sat beside Ryan, her smile lethal. Hello, Ryan, she said. Cozy little date, isn't it? The air thickened, the bar's golden glow doing nothing to soften the tension. Sarah's hand shook, and Ryan's jaw tightened. Lauren, I can explain, he started, but she cut him off. Don't, she said, her voice ice. We're not here for your lies. Ethan leaned closer to Sarah. You thought I wouldn't find out? That you could sneak around behind my back? Sarah's face flushed, her eyes darting to nearby tables where heads were turning. Ethan, not here, she whispered. Why not? He shot back, loud enough to draw stares. You didn't mind being here with him. Lauren's smile was a blade. How long did you think you could keep this up, Ryan? Did you think I'd never notice? Ryan's composure cracked. This is ridiculous. You're making a scene. Good, Ethan said, locking eyes with Sarah. Let everyone see who you really are. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was the opening move in a game designed to destroy them. And Ethan and Lauren were playing to win. The rain had stopped, but the air in Asheville hung heavy with dampness, the Blue Ridge Mountains barely visible through the morning fog. Ethan sat in his dimly lit living room, a bottle of bourbon on the coffee table, its amber glow catching the light from a single lamp. Across from him, Lauren sipped her drink, her sharp features softened by the late hour, but her eyes still burning with purpose. The confrontation at the Lantern Bar had been a spark, igniting their resolve, but it wasn't enough. Sarah and Ryan had squirmed, but they hadn't broken. Not yet. Ethan leaned forward, his voice low. Embarrassing them was a start, but it's not enough. We need to hit them where it hurts. Lauren set her glass down, her lips curling into a dangerous smile. Agreed. They think they can slink back to their perfect lives? We'll burn those lives to the ground. Her voice was steady, but the fury behind it was palpable. Ethan felt it too, a raw, gnawing need for justice that went beyond public humiliation. Sarah had betrayed him, shredded their decade-long marriage with lies. Ryan had played the same game with Lauren, and together, they'd left a trail of wreckage. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming what was stolen. Ethan pulled out his laptop, opening a folder of evidence he'd gathered from Sarah's phone, texts, photos, even receipts from hotel stays in Charlotte and Raleigh. Lauren had her own arsenal, access to Ryan's emails, bank statements showing unexplained charges, and a photo of him and Sarah at a rooftop bar in Greenville. Together, they had enough to bury them. Ryan's a big deal in real estate, Ethan said, his eyes scanning the screen. His whole career depends on trust, clients, investors, partners. What happens when that trust is gone? Lauren's eyes glinted. He's done. One leak to the right people, and his deals dry up. No one wants a liar handling their money. She leaned back, crossing her arms. And Sarah? She's built her whole identity around being the perfect wife, PDA queen, charity organizer, the woman everyone envies at the neighborhood cookouts. What happens when that image cracks? Ethan's jaw tightened. Sarah's world revolved around her social circle, her status as the flawless spouse and mother. Destroying that would hurt more than any argument in a bar. We expose them, he said, his voice sharp. But not just a public scene. We do it strategically controlled, precise, like a surgical strike. For hours, they mapped it out. Ethan would target Sarah's social sphere, leaking the evidence to her PDA group, her book club, the neighbors who fawned over her perfect life. A single email, carefully worded, would spread like wildfire through Asheville's tight-knit community. Lauren, meanwhile, had connections in Ryan's world, former colleagues, a journalist friend at the Asheville Citizen-Times, even a rival developer who'd jump at the chance to take him down. She'd feed them the dirt on Ryan's affair, ensuring it reached his clients and partners. By the time they finished, the living room was littered with notes and printouts, a war room for their vendetta. Okay, Lauren said, tapping her pen against the table. We've got the ammo. Where do we aim first? Ethan thought for a moment, then grinned, a cold edge to it. Ryan's firm. He's got a major deal closing next week, a luxury condo project. If his investors get wind of this, they'll pull out faster than you can say scandal. Lauren nodded, her smile matching his. And Sarah's PDA. She's hosting their big Halloween fundraiser next week. Imagine the look on her face when her perfect reputation goes up in flames. They clinked glasses, sealing the pact. To tearing it all down, Lauren said, her voice low and fierce. Ethan echoed her, the bourbon burning his throat as he swallowed. For the first time since he'd seen those texts, he felt a flicker of control, like he was taking back what Sarah had stolen. The next morning, Ethan woke to a pounding headache and a phone buzzing with notifications. Sarah had called 5 times, her voicemails a mix of panic and desperation. Ethan, please, we need to talk. I don't know what's happening, but people are saying things, call me. He deleted each one without listening to the end. Let her panic. She'd earned it. Lauren, already up, was scrolling through her phone, her coffee steaming beside her. I sent the email, she said, not looking up. To who? Ethan asked, his pulse quickening. Ryan's biggest client, she replied, her tone flat. And a contact at the Citizen Times. Attached everything, texts, photos, the works. It's done. Ethan exhaled, the weight of their plan settling in. And Sarah? Lauren met his gaze, her eyes sharp. That's on you. You know her world better than I do. He nodded, pulling up his laptop. Drafting the email to Sarah's PDA and neighbors was easier than he'd expected. The evidence, texts, photos, a receipt from a hotel stay painted a picture no one could ignore. The subject line read, "The truth about Sarah Caldwell." It was brutal, direct, and perfect. When he hit send, a strange calm washed over him. There was no turning back. By noon, the fallout began. Lauren's phone pinged with a message from her journalist friend. Ryan's deal is in trouble. Investors are spooked. She showed Ethan the screen, a grim satisfaction in her eyes. It's working, she said. Meanwhile, Sarah's calls kept coming, each one more frantic. Ethan ignored them, picturing her unraveling as her friends whispered behind her back. The PDA group chat was probably exploding by now, the perfect Asheville mom exposed as a liar. That evening, they sat in Ethan's living room, watching the chaos unfold from afar. Sarah's social media was eerily silent, no posts about her usual charity events or family photos. Ryan's firm had issued a vague statement about reviewing internal matters, a corporate way of saying he was in deep trouble. Lauren poured another round of bourbon, her movements deliberate. They're feeling it now, she said. But it's not enough. Ethan nodded, his mind already on the next step. They think this is the worst of it, he said, his voice low. They have no idea what's coming. The bar confrontation had been a warning shot. What came next would be a reckoning, one that would leave Sarah and Ryan with nothing but the ashes of their betrayal. The crisp October air swept through Asheville, carrying the scent of wood smoke and fallen leaves as Halloween decorations flickered in the windows along Haywood Street. Ethan stood outside the Grand Meridian Hotel, its sleek facade glowing under the evening sky, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside him. Tonight was the next phase of their plan, a carefully orchestrated ambush at an upscale restaurant where Sarah and Ryan thought they could salvage their crumbling facades. Ethan adjusted his jacket, his pulse steady but his mind racing. Beside him, Lauren smoothed her dress, her eyes sharp with anticipation. They'll show, she said, reading his thoughts. They're too desperate to save face. Ethan nodded. Sarah and Ryan were cornered, their worlds unraveling since the emails hit. Sarah's PDA group had iced her out, her name now a whisper of scandal at every book club and bake sale. Ryan's condo deal was teetering, his investors pulling back as rumors of his affair spread like wildfire through Asheville's business circles. Ethan had arranged this meeting under the guise of a truce, reserving a table at the Admiral, a swanky spot Sarah loved for its candlelit ambience and air of exclusivity. She'd come, if only to beg for forgiveness. Ryan would follow, clinging to his last shred of control. Inside, the restaurant hummed with quiet conversations and the clink of wine glasses. Sarah and Ryan were already seated, their faces pale, their smiles brittle as they tried to play the part of a polished couple. Sarah's eyes widened when she saw Ethan, her fingers tightening around her glass. Ryan's jaw clenched as Lauren approached, his usual charm replaced by a flicker of panic. Ethan, Sarah said, her voice trembling. What is this? Just a friendly chat, Ethan replied, sliding into the chair across from her, his tone cold. Lauren took the seat beside Ryan, her smile sharp as a shard of glass. Hello, Ryan, she said, her voice dripping with mockery. Enjoying your evening? Ryan shifted, his eyes darting between them. Lauren, this is getting out of hand. Let's talk privately. No, Lauren snapped, leaning forward. You lost that privilege when you decided to sneak around in public. She pulled a folder from her bag and dropped it on the table with a heavy thud. Let's start with these. Sarah's face flushed as Lauren flipped open the folder, revealing printouts of their texts, intimate, damning messages that left no room for excuses. Ethan watched Sarah's composure crack, her hands trembling as she stared at the evidence. Ethan, please, she whispered, her voice breaking. Not here. Why not? Ethan said, his voice rising just enough to turn heads. You didn't mind meeting him here, did you? The restaurant's hushed atmosphere amplified their discomfort, curious glances darting their way. Ryan tried to intervene, his voice low. This is harassment. You're crossing a line. Harassment? Lauren laughed, sharp and bitter. You cheated, lied, and thought you'd get away with it. That's the real crime. She pushed the folder toward him. Keep going. There's more. The table fell silent, the weight of their betrayal suffocating. Sarah's eyes glistened with tears, but Ethan felt no pity. She'd made her choice, and now she'd face the consequences. Ryan's hand twitched, as if he wanted to grab the folder and run, but he stayed rooted, his face a mask of defeat. What do you want? He muttered. Everything, Ethan said, his voice low and final. Your reputation, your career, your perfect little lives gone. Sarah's breath hitched, her voice barely a whisper. Ethan, I didn't mean for this to happen. It was a mistake. A mistake. Ethan leaned closer, his eyes boring into hers. You threw away 10 years for a fling. Don't call that a mistake. Lauren's gaze shifted to Ryan, her voice cutting. And you, did you think I'd just sit back while you humiliated me? Your clients know now. Your partners know. You're finished. The tension was a live wire, sparking with every word. A waiter approached, sensing the unease. Everything okay here? He asked, his tone wary. Perfect, Ethan said, his smile tight. Just catching up. The waiter retreated, and Sarah's hands shook harder, her voice cracking. Ethan, we can fix this. I love you. Love. Ethan's laugh was cold, hollow. You don't get to say that anymore. He stood, Lauren following, the folder left open on the table like a guillotine. Enjoy your dinner, he said. You'll need it to stomach what's coming next. As they left, the restaurant's murmurs followed them, a chorus of judgment trailing Sarah and Ryan. Outside, the cool night air hit Ethan like a slap, but it couldn't douse the fire in his chest. Lauren glanced at him, her expression unreadable. That felt good, she said, her voice low. It's not over, Ethan replied, his mind already on the next move. The restaurant had been a public strike, but the real blow was still to come. Ethan had spent weeks digging into Ryan's business dealings, uncovering whispers of shady contracts and backroom deals. A former colleague, bitter from being pushed out of Ryan's firm, had been happy to spill details, off-the-record payments, inflated invoices, a pattern of cutting corners to secure deals. Ethan passed it to Lauren, who'd already lined up a contact to leak it to the Asheville Citizen-Times. Meanwhile, Sarah's downfall was accelerating. Her PDA friends had stopped returning her calls, and the Halloween fundraiser she was supposed to lead had quietly replaced her. Ethan had fueled the fire, slipping a rumor to a nosy neighbor that Sarah's affair wasn't her first. It wasn't true, but it didn't need to be. The damage was done. Her perfect image was shattered, her social world a pile of ashes. That night, as Ethan and Lauren sat in his living room, the bourbon bottle half empty, she raised an idea that made his pulse spike. What if we take it further? She said, her voice low with excitement. A public event. Something big, where they can't hide. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Like what? A charity gala, she said, her eyes gleaming. The kind of thing they'd never miss. We invite them, let them think they're safe, then pull the rug out. It was bold, reckless, and perfect. The Grand Meridian's hosting one next week, Ethan said, the plan clicking into place. Asheville's elite will be there. If we play this right, it'll be their final humiliation. Lauren grinned, raising her glass. To the endgame. Ethan clinked his glass against hers, a grim resolve settling in. Sarah and Ryan thought they'd hit rock bottom. They were wrong. The gala would be their undoing, and Ethan and Lauren would be there to watch it burn. The Grand Meridian Hotel's ballroom glittered under crystal chandeliers, the hum of Asheville's elite filling the air with clinking glasses and practiced laughter. It was the night of the annual Blue Ridge Charity Gala, a black tie affair where the town's wealthiest mingled, their egos as polished as their cufflinks. Ethan stood near the entrance, his tailored tuxedo feeling like armor, his pulse steady but his eyes sharp with purpose. Beside him, Lauren adjusted her sleek black gown, her smile a blade hidden in silk. Sarah and Ryan were here, somewhere in the crowd, unaware of the trap closing around them. Tonight was the endgame. The week leading up to the gala had been a blur of preparation. Ethan and Lauren had worked tirelessly, ensuring every detail was perfect. Lauren's contact at the Asheville Citizen-Times had run a damning piece on Ryan's shady deals, off-the-record payments and doctored contracts, hinting at his affair as the cherry on top. His firm had suspended him, and his condo deal was dead, investors fleeing like rats from a sinking ship. Sarah, meanwhile, was a pariah. Her PDA had ousted her, her social media silent, her neighbors whispering about her at every coffee shop on Hendersonville Road. Ethan had fanned the flames, leaking more texts to a gossip-hungry mom who'd spread them like wildfire. The rumor about Sarah's other affairs had taken on a life of its own, true or not. They lured Sarah and Ryan to the gala with a carefully worded invitation, hinting at a chance to clear the air. Desperate to salvage their reputations, they'd taken the bait. Ethan spotted them near the bar, their faces tight with forced smiles as they mingled, trying to pretend the world wasn't crumbling around them. Sarah's red dress clung to her frame, but her eyes darted nervously, betraying her unease. Ryan's tailored suit couldn't hide the tension in his shoulders, his charm a flickering flame. "Showtime," Lauren murmured, her voice low and electric. Ethan nodded, his jaw tight, and they moved through the crowd, their steps deliberate. As they approached, Sarah's smile faltered, her glass trembling in her hand. Ryan turned, his eyes narrowing as he saw Lauren, but he held his ground, his arrogance barely intact. "Ethan," Sarah said, her voice thin. "What are you doing here?" "Wouldn't miss it," Ethan replied, his tone smooth but laced with venom. "Big night for charity, right?" Lauren stepped closer to Ryan, her smile sharp. "You look tense, Ryan. Something wrong." "This is low, even for you," Ryan hissed, his voice low to avoid drawing attention. "You've made your point. Stop this." "Not quite," Lauren said, her eyes glinting. "You see, tonight's special. A celebration of truth." Sarah's face paled. "What are you talking about?" Before Ethan could answer, the event's host took the stage, his voice booming through the ballroom. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention?" The crowd quieted, all eyes turning to the stage as a massive screen descended from the ceiling. Ethan's heart pounded, but his face remained a mask of calm. Lauren gave a subtle nod to the host, a contact she'd secured through her network. "This was it. We'd like to recognize some special guests tonight," the host continued, his tone cheerful but oblivious to the bomb about to drop. "Ryan Whitaker, please step forward." Ryan froze, his face draining of color. Sarah gripped his arm, her whisper sharp. "Don't." But the crowd parted, their curious stares pushing him toward the stage. Ethan and Lauren followed, their steps measured, their presence a silent threat. As Ryan stood under the spotlight, the screen flickered to life. A photo appeared, Ryan and Sarah, caught in a hotel lobby, his arm around her waist. Gasps rippled through the room, followed by murmurs. "Is that his mistress?" someone whispered. "She's married, isn't she?" The screen flashed again, texts, emails, receipts, a timeline of their affair laid bare. Sarah's face crumpled, tears streaking her makeup as she stood rooted, unable to look away. Ryan's jaw clenched, his hands balling into fists, but he was powerless under the weight of the crowd's judgment. Ethan stepped forward, his voice cutting through the silence. "This is what happens when you think you're untouchable." Lauren leaned toward Ryan, her voice a venomous whisper. "Your career, your reputation, your life, it's over." The host, flustered, tried to regain control. Let's move on to the next segment," he stammered. But the damage was done. The crowd's whispers grew louder, phones already buzzing with photos and texts spreading the scandal. Sarah's sobs were audible now, her hands covering her face as she tried to shrink into herself. Ryan grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the exit, but the crowd's stares followed them, a gauntlet of humiliation. As they fled, Ethan and Lauren stayed, their triumph cold and absolute. The ballroom buzzed with gossip, Asheville's elite tearing into the scandal like vultures. Lauren turned to Ethan, her eyes gleaming. "We did it," she said, her voice low but fierce. Ethan nodded, but a strange emptiness settled in his chest. The victory was sweet, but it hadn't erased the pain of Sarah's betrayal. "It's not over yet," he said, his voice steady. "There's one more thing." Lauren raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" Ethan's lips curved into a grim smile. "Making sure they never forget." The gala had been the public execution, but Ethan had one final move, a personal strike to ensure Sarah and Ryan carried the weight of their choices forever. The streets of Asheville were quiet under a gray November sky, the Halloween decorations gone, replaced by early Thanksgiving wreaths on doors along Marymount Avenue. Ethan sat in his apartment, a glass of bourbon untouched on the table, the weight of the past week settling like dust. The gala at the Grand Meridian had been a detonation, its fallout reshaping lives in ways even he hadn't anticipated. Sarah and Ryan's perfect worlds were rubble, and yet, as Ethan stared at the ceiling, a hollow ache lingered where triumph should have been. The days after the gala were a blur of consequences. Ryan's firm had cut him loose, issuing a curt press release about parting ways, while whispers of financial misconduct swirled. The Asheville Citizen-Times ran a follow-up piece, citing anonymous sources who detailed Ryan's shady deals, enough to ensure no developer in the Carolinas would touch him. His name was toxic now, his social media silent, his flashy lifestyle a memory. Sarah's fall was just as brutal. Her PDA circle had shunned her, her charity events canceled, her neighbors turning away when she passed. A vicious rumor, fueled by Ethan's leak, suggested she'd been unfaithful before, and though it wasn't true, it clung to her like tar. She'd moved out of their shared home, crashing with her sister in Raleigh, her life reduced to a suitcase and a string of unanswered calls. Ethan's phone buzzed with another voicemail from Sarah. "Ethan, please. I know I messed up, but I need to explain. Call me." He deleted it, his jaw tight. Her pleas had lost their power, each one a reminder of her lies. But late at night, when the apartment was too quiet, a flicker of doubt crept in, not regret, but a nagging question of whether revenge had healed anything. The pain of her betrayal still cut, sharp and raw, no matter how thoroughly he dismantled her world. A week after the gala, Sarah showed up at his door, unannounced. She looked like a ghost of herself, eyes red, hair limp, her usual polish replaced by exhaustion. "Ethan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can we talk?" He didn't invite her in, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed. What's left to say? Tears welled in her eyes, but she pressed on. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I was stupid, selfish. I got lost in something that didn't matter. But I love you, Ethan. I always have." His laugh was sharp, cutting. "Love? You threw away 10 years for a fling with some sleaze. You don't get to call that love." She flinched, her hands twisting together. "I was scared of fading, of being invisible. It wasn't about you, it was me. Invisible." Ethan's voice rose, anger flaring. "You had a husband who gave you everything, and it wasn't enough." Sarah's sobs broke free, her voice cracking. "I know I ruined us. I'll do anything, therapy, time, anything to fix it." Ethan shook his head, the final threads of their marriage snapping. "You broke it, Sarah. It's gone." He stepped back, his voice steady but final. "I filed for divorce. You'll hear from my lawyer." Her face crumpled, but she didn't fight. She turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing down the hall. Ethan closed the door, the click loud in the silence. For the first time, he felt the weight lift, not from forgiveness, but from letting go. A month later, Ethan met Lauren for coffee at a small cafe on College Street. She looked different, lighter, her sharp edges softened, as if the fire of revenge had burned itself out. "How's it feel?" she asked, stirring her latte. "Free." Ethan shrugged, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Getting there. Sarah's gone. Moved to Raleigh. Her life's a mess, but it's not my problem anymore." Lauren nodded, her eyes distant. "Ryan's finished. No one in Asheville will work with him. He's talking about moving to Atlanta, starting over. Good luck with that." "And you?" Ethan asked, studying her. She sighed, glancing out the window at the mountains. "Divorce is in motion. I'm thinking of leaving Asheville, maybe heading to Charleston. Somewhere new. No ghosts." Ethan nodded, understanding the need for a clean slate. "You'll be fine, Lauren. You're tougher than most." She smiled, a real one this time. "So are you. We made a hell of a team, didn't we?" "Yeah," he said, clinking his coffee mug against hers. "We did." They sat in silence, the weight of their shared pain easing in the quiet. Revenge hadn't erased the scars, but it had given them clarity. Ethan knew who he was now, a man who'd survived betrayal and come out stronger. Lauren, too, carried her wounds, but her resolve was unbroken. As Ethan walked home, the Blue Ridge Mountains loomed against the horizon, their steady presence a reminder that some things endured. The city's hum felt different now, less oppressive, like a weight had lifted. He'd lost a marriage, a dream, but he'd gained something else, himself. The game was over, and for once, Ethan was the one standing tall. He stepped into his apartment, closing the door behind him, ready to start over on his own terms.